Star Trek: The Next Generation for Game Boy from Absolute Entertainment. Also available for the NES and Game Gear, both versions having been reviewed in prior videos ages ago, so if you've seen one of those videos or both those videos for whatever reason I cannot fathom, then you probably already know where I'm going with this one, but otherwise, stick around, I guess, or something. Anyways. Star Trek TNG puts you in the role of a promising Starfleet cadet who is given command of the Galaxy-class starship USS Enterprise 1701D and must complete the missions given to you within the time allotted. As you complete more missions, you'll eventually earn a promotion, which usually yields more challenging missions. Beyond that, however, there's not much in terms of storyline or deep plot points. It's just randomly generated mission after randomly generated mission of rescuing colonists or defending planets against freighters or really basic and rudimentary stuff. The completely random generation of missions also doesn't help in poking more holes into supposed canon than anyone would care for. Sure, the game does acknowledge that there exists a Romulan neutral zone and things of that nature, but then you also have things like rescuing Bajoran colonists from a deadly plague on Bajor. Yeah, sure, I'll go ahead and save the Bajoran colonists from the deadly plague on their home planet, while avoiding that whole business with the Cardassian occupation that was taking place around the same time, and you know what, I don't care anymore. Each mission begins with Captain Jean-Luc Picard briefing you on your mission objectives in a couple text blocks before spending the rest of the game running Dixon Hill holoprograms. Look, I've done this game twice already, I ran out of bits, that's all I got. From there it's off to the bridge, which comprises a view screen and 5 Starfleet insignias, each representing a different station. Lieutenant Worf handles shields and weapons, Commander Data handles navigation, sensors, and whatnots. Because I suppose we can't get a random girl in red to drive the ship? No, I'm not going there. It's been done to death and it's too easy. Commander LaForge takes care of engineering and damage control. Chief O'Brien handles the transporters. And number 1 just leans near a console and rubs his beard, only serving to remind you of your mission objectives as well as let you know when your deadline to complete the current mission is coming up. When it comes to activating weapons and shields, warping to other star systems, or just plain moving the ship around, it's relatively simple fare. However, most starship operations in TNG are not as straightforward as flipping through menus and inputting commands. When you need to achieve planetary orbit, transport targets off their previous location, or effect repairs to the ship, you need to play little mini-games like flying through rings to achieve orbit, using your targeting array to find things to transport up to the ship, or guide resources to random bits. These mini-games do make for interesting diversions, but ultimately get fairly tedious after a while, and generally take me out of the experience of flying a big old spaceship. Sometimes the simpler approach works best in this regard. Controlling the ship itself is fairly simple stuff. Your D-pad moves the ship, your buttons shoot your phasers and your photon torpedoes. Pressing select will alternate between controlling the ship and conferring with your crew, and you could also control the speed of the ship while in this state. It should be noted, however, that while controls are mostly responsive, piloting the Enterprise is akin to driving a snail. The ship turns slowly, it's not all that maneuverable, it's just a cumbersome vessel to control, and that works. This is, after all, a massive capital ship. It should not be moving or driving like a starfighter as a result. Of course, nobody told the enemy vessels this little deal, and you might have a hard time keeping up with whatever target you happen to be chasing down, even when you're at a full stop. Making matters worse here is that collision detection is the drizzling shits. Enemy ships apparently have these tiny little hitboxes at the very center of the ship, and while this isn't a problem when you're firing at ships that are very far away, logically speaking, you hit a ship with phasers point blank, it should damage the target anywhere you hit it, but nope! You have to hit the direct center of the ship to do damage. Side of the ship, skin the top, even a couple pixels won't register. This makes photon torpedoes, a weapon already difficult to strike with effectively, even more of a chore to use. You know what? Screw the torpedoes, just stick with phasers, they do the job nicely. Oh, you do have sensors and an overview of the sector to look for the ships, that helps a bit I guess. The graphical prowess of TNG on Game Boy can be best described as below average. Most of the game is played on the view screen with 5 Starfleet comm badges on the bottom, which is a somewhat bland layout, while the various ships that appear look like what they're supposed to, most of the time at least. They're not exactly the best looking ships on Game Boy. It's not so much bad than it is simply dull looking, and I suppose they did the best what they could with what they had. On the bright side, some of the mugshots and menus look okayish, and the intermission bits when raising shields or activating weapons isn't too bad. By Game Boy standards, I suppose it's adequate, but that's really faint praise at best. As far as the sound goes, well, the game does boast a respectable iteration of the TNG theme along with a couple other musical cues that are somewhat hit or miss, but the sound effects are rather meh. No matter what the platform, 8-bit next gen isn't quite making it so in the sound department, so whatever. Whether it's on the Game Boy, the NES, or the Game Gear, this particular attempt at making a game based on the Star Trek The Next Generation television show is not a particularly good one. The idea of making a Starship Simulator game on lesser hardware is admittedly a bold move, but that's about the only real positive to it. It is functional at best, but there is little to no substance, much less incentive to keep going, and it won't be long before one longs for a much more fulfilling Star Trek interactive adventure. All in all, if you really need to play this one game for whatever reason, I'd recommend the Game Gear version. It has one less button to do stuff with, but it does play well, benefits from a higher color count, and it has a couple extra bits missing from the Nintendo versions, so that's a thing. But generally speaking, I wouldn't bother.